Hi everyone. So in today's episode we will learn about flow troubleshooting. As an admin or developer, you know you should test all your customizations before rolling them out to users, and flows are no different. Testing lets you fine-tune the flow's behavior, identify and fix bugs, and otherwise make sure your users have a successful experience. And of course, you also benefit because you're much less likely to spend time later responding to panicked email from your users. And just imagine on the Friday night you get an email about an error, okay? So it's better to test your flows always. At some point, we all have learned an important lesson, which is sometimes things just don't go as planned. This is also true for flows in Salesforce. Sometimes flows can break, stop working for one reason or another. Numerous things like faulty logic, null values, permissions, or bad code can keep a flow from working properly. This episode teaches you how to root out the problem with a flow in your org and solve it so that it should work as it should be. Flows can involve a lot of moving parts. All the parts should work properly for the flow to be successful. If one part breaks, the whole flow does not well flow. While there are many different reasons for a flow to break, there are some common culprits which you should always consider checking, like using the wrong field, using the wrong variable, object and field level security for the running user, too many SQL queries, and null values. Now you will say, Monica, you have told us everything about flow troubleshooting and what are the main culprits and all of that. But what should we do? What should be the step to troubleshoot the flow, right? So, first of all, create a plan. Create a test plan, how you want to debug your flow, what should be the first step. Just create a plan, note down it, and then use it in your org with the examples and with the help. Okay. So, before you start testing, draft a list of test cases and identify what you expect the result to be. So there are few options with which you can troubleshoot your flows very easily. First option is to use the debug button in Flow Builder. What does debug button do? So in the Flow Builder, there are buttons on the top right corner. So debug button is one of them. What does it do? Debug button does everything that the run button does, but it has some superpowers. It lets you enter values for the flow's input variables and display the debug details while running the flow. That way you can verify how the flow processes data. Okay, so with the debug button by your side, you can just debug your flow very easily and you can check every step one by one, that what is the mistake you're doing and what is the output that should be there. After that, we can fix access issues. If a user is denied access to a field or object in the org, check the access to that user so you can give additional access through permission sets. After that, we can check if there is any variable or null values. The problem could be anything from a faulty logic to bad input data to not accounting for when a value is left blank. If you have an issue in record triggered flow, then there is a view test button also for record triggered flow, with which we can create tests, create assertions to check where our flow is actually breaking. After that, we have one more option, which is that we can add a fault path to our flow. If you have a doubt that your flow can break, always add a fault path to it, so at least the user will not see the default error message. Instead, we can show them something more meaningful about the error. Okay. Now, the last one is check every outcome. If you have a decision element, make sure you debug and check every outcome condition of that of that decision element, because maybe you just check the first outcome and it is working fine, but that does not mean that your flow is bug free. Now let's dive straight into our org, and for a change, let's create a faulty flow. We will understand how we can use the debug button and view test button to understand the error and to solve our flow and make it bug free. Okay, so this is the flow list that I have in my Salesforce org. I have created these two examples to make you understand how you can troubleshoot flows using the debug button and using the view test button, and how we can check the other culprits as well. So let's go to the first example that I have opened here already. So as I told you earlier, for a change, let's create a faulty flow. So I have saved your time here. I have created a flow already. What I'm doing in this flow, I'll show you here. First, I have added a screen flow, and in which I have added a screen element. In this element, we are asking the user for the first name, last name, email, and phone number. After this screen, we are adding a create record element in which we are creating a contact using those information that we have asked the user in the earlier screen. Now, this is perfectly fine. What is the error? So the error is, if you guys know that in contact object, the last name field is mandatory. So what I have done is, I have taken the object name here, and in the fields I have added the last name here. So what will I do is, I will just remove the last name, and I will add the first name, email, and phone here. Let's add email dot value, and let's add phone as well. Dot value. So what we have done is, we have just removed the last name field from here. So it is a faulty flow now. It will not work properly. It will give an error. So let's now just click on the done button. Okay, if you will deploy it, if you will not check it, if you will not troubleshoot it, then what will happen? Then the user will tell you that this error is occurring and the contact is not creating. Then you will debug and find out that oops, we have missed the last name. So now what we will do is, we will use the debug button. So first of all, the basic thing to troubleshoot is to use the debug button and check the flow properly using the debug details. Okay, so what we will do is, we will do the same. We will just save the flow because we have added the fields here. For debugging, it is not compulsory that you should activate the flow. You should always debug before activating, so you know the flow is working fine. Let's debug it. And once you click on the debug button, it will redirect you to the debug screen. And in the debug screen, first of all, the pop-up appears. It has debug options, which is run the latest version of the flow, show the details of what executed, and the third option is run flow as another user. So like, I'm the admin which is running the flow, but if I want to run flow as another user, then I can use this button. I'll get back to it later. It has its important also, but let's leave it blank and unchecked for now. After that, if you have any input variables in your flow, like if you have created a variable, let's go here and I will show you. Let's see if I have any variable here. Let's say, for example, we will create a variable very quickly to show you what is a input variable. Input and data type text. Okay, now here you can see we have two options available for input and available for output. So if you have kept your variable available for input, that means you're asking the input value for this variable from the user, right? So if you have checked this available for input, then whenever you will debug the flow, you will get the variable name with a text box here, and it will ask the value to put in here. That means you can add a value hard coded here that you want in your variable to debug the flow. But if you do not have any variable available for input, then it will say this flow has no variable that allows the input access. Okay, so now let's just run the flow. And when you will run the flow, on the left hand side you will see your flow with the heading and with all the elements here with the first element screen. Okay, and the right hand side you will see debug details. That means it will show you how the interview started, how the transition are committing, what all are you doing in the flow, what values are you putting in the flow, and all of that. So let's just fill up the form and see what it says. I'm just filling up my details. I am filling the last name, but that is of no use because we have not taken that field there. Okay, now when I will click on next, the error will occur. So let's click on next, and this is the error. So here you can find out that your flow is not working fine and you have some error here. Okay, now if you will not debug it and you will just deploy your flow to the user, your user will see this error, which is a big no in our industry, right? We should just debug it here itself. Now it doesn't show any information. It doesn't show that what causes the flow to fail, right? But we have the debug details here on the right hand side, which will show and which will tell us in the detail that what was the error and how we can resolve it. So let's go at the top and see what it says. Let's go step by step. This is how the interview started and transition committed. After that, it shows that we had a screen element with name create contact. Okay, and in the name we had Monica, first name, last name we have Ramchandani. It is showing all the details. After that, the lightning component email, in which we have put our email, so it shows us the value also, and whatever we have chosen it will show us here. After that, lightning component phone, in which we have added the value. After that, it shows us that we have selected the next button, right? So it tells us so many details. That is why debug button is so important to check and troubleshoot the flow in detail. After that, it shows that the create record element was there, which is correct. And let's read it out. In the email, we had Monica at the Gmail, which was the email value, and first name we had Monica, phone we have this. Okay, then the result appears. The result says failed to create record. Okay, so that is how it shows the details of the element that we have taken, but it shows the error details as well. If you will go down, let's read it here. Error occurred. This error occurred when the flow tried to create records. Required field missing. Required field are missing. Last name. You can look up the exception code values in this link. So you see how much detail it is giving us. It told us that one required field is missing in the create record elements of the contact creation. Okay, so we know that we have missed a required field. Now it is showing the required field name as well. That means we don't have to search the field that like what field will be required, what we have missed. It is showing us that last name is missing, so it shows us in detail that what we should do to resolve the issue as well. Okay, and after that, transition rollback, because an error occurred, any record that the flow was ready to create, update or delete weren't committed to the database. Of course, because the error occurred, no record were committed to the database. Okay, so that is how debug button works. That is how a debug button helps you to troubleshoot your flow in the most easiest way possible. This is all in your hand. You can just search the detail, you can just search the error, understand the error, and you can resolve it as well. Now what we will do is, we will go back to our flow, and as it told us that the last name is missing, so let's add the last name. Last name equals to name dot last name. Now let's just save it and let's debug it once again to check now it is working fine or not. Run. Let's fill up the details again. Let's write flow testing, troubleshooting, and Salesforce.com. Just adding some random email. I don't know why I wrote that. Phone number, and let's click on next. And now you see all done, the flow interview finished. That means our flow worked fine. Our flow is bug free now. We have just solved the bug using the debug button in the flow builder. Now let's go to the debug details again. Here the screen element, which is same. Now you see we have the last name here as well, then email, then phone. After that it says create records, and in the result now you can see a record is ready to be created when the next screen, pause or local action is executed, or when the interview finishes. Okay, and after that it gives you the ID as well. That is the ID of the contact that we have just created using our flow. After that, it says transition committed. Any record that the flow was ready to create, update or delete were committed to the database. That means our contact is created and we have a contact with the name flow testing now. Let's check it here. Let's go to contacts. And as you can see, the latest contact is flow testing. That is a contact that we have created using our flow. That also means that our flow is working fine and it is bug free. So that is the first option that you can use to troubleshoot your flow. That is the basic option. I would say that that is just so simple that everyone with a basic knowledge of troubleshooting and with a basic knowledge of flow can troubleshoot the flow very easily using the debug button. Okay. Now let's just take the same example for another scenario, which is object and field level security. So if you have not given the proper object and field level security, that means if the user does not have access like the edit access or delete access to the contact object, that means the user is not eligible to run this flow, right? Let's save it and go to the debug button, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. We are not just logging in from that user and checking. I'm just here as an admin and I'm running that flow with that user. So I have told you this option, I will tell you about this later. That is the time. Let's check it here, and after checking, for example, I'm taking this user that does not have access to the contact object. Okay, so just select this user and we will run it, and when we will run it, we will got an error that you do not have the level of access necessary to perform the operation you requested. Please contact the owner of the record or the admin if access is necessary. So if you do not give object and field level security access to the user, then the user will not be able to perform the flow action. So the second option will be that give the proper access that is required, that is necessary for the user to run the flow and to execute the flow. Now let's take another scenario in this flow itself, which is null values or inappropriate values or wrong variable values. Okay, what we will do is we will create a variable name var with the data type text, and we will click on done. Now, as you know, the last name field is necessary in the contact object. What we will do is in the last name, instead of name dot last name, we will add a variable which is name var, which is null right now. So we will click on done, and it should show an error that the value is null and the last name is missing. Let's debug. And run it, and let's fill it again. It will not take this last name, instead it will take the variable name. And let's just keep email and phone blank because it's not required anyways. Let's click on next, and here it is, the error occurred, an unhandled error. And as we go into the debug details, it shows this error occurred when the flow tried to create record, required field missing, which is last name. Now you will say last name is there, why it is missing and all of that. So let's go here and see what is the last name value. Then you will see the value is name var, but the name var value is null. So from here you can find out that your variable value is null. You will go back to the flow, you will check why the variable value is null, if there is something wrong, if you have put an assignment element to add the value to the name variable, or if you want to do something else to put the value into the name variable. That is according to your scenario, but that is how you can check the null value or wrong values from your variables as well using the debug button itself. Now after that, another option we have is adding the fault path. So fault path will not obviously solve your problem or troubleshoot your flows, but what it can do is it will not show the user the unhandled error, the red text that is there in the debug button. So it will not show the user that, instead it will show the user something that you want to show them. Okay, so let me show you the example of that as well. Let's add a screen and name it success screen. Okay, and in this we will just add a display text. Let's write your contact added successfully. Okay, and let's make it a little big. Color should be green, bold, center, and done. Okay, so this is the screen that will appear after the contact is created. Now if the error will occur, the user will see that unhandled error occurred, a screen that is shown in the debug button as well. Now what you can do is you can add another screen which will be the error screen, and in this we will add a display text as well. Let's write, oops, something happened. We are working on it. Okay, and now let's just do some formatting here as well. Let's make it red, bold, and center. Okay, so here I have added a screen which is error screen. Okay, now when it will show, let's just take the connector from here and add it to the screen. Can you see this is the red line and it says fault? So this is the fault path that I was talking about. Now what will happen is, if you don't debug your flow and you do not know that your flow has an error and you deploy it, what will happen is, of course it will not go to the success screen, but instead of showing the user an unhandled error, it will show the user this success screen that you have created, which says, oh, something happened, we are working on it. Let me show you this by activating and adding it to my Lightning app very quickly. Flow series is the Lightning app that I'm using for all the examples. Let's edit the page and add the debug flow example 1 here. So I'll go to the gear icon, edit page. It will redirect on the Lightning app builder, and from here I will search flow and I will add my flow component on the top so we can see it easily. Here we will add our example name, which is debug flow example 1, and let's save it. Activate, save. Let's go back and check it out. Now here's our flow example. Let's quickly add it. We are leaving the email and phone, and let's click on next. So you see, instead of showing the unhandled error exception, it is showing the proper screen element that we have added. Oops, something happened, we are working on it. You can write anything like apologies, we are sorry for the inconvenience. That is better for the user to see, instead of seeing an unhandled error and please contact your administrator. That gives a very very bad example. So that is a good practice, that you always add a fault path in your flow. No matter you're debugging it or not debugging it, a fault path is always a safer option. So that is how you can use a fault path as well to not just troubleshoot, but at least show the user the error that is more appropriate than showing the unhandled error. Now the last option is using the view test button. So for that I have another example as well. Let's go to the list of flows, and here's the example debug flow example 2. I have not added a proper logic in this example because otherwise it would have been a very difficult example to understand. I have just added a record triggered flow because the view test button is only available for record triggered flow. Okay, and in this I have added with object account trigger should be a record is created, and after that what I'm doing is I am adding a decision element to check the account's billing country, and if the billing country is India, then I'm assigning the record billing city to Rajasthan, and if the billing country is US, then I'm assigning the billing city to Atlanta. Okay, So this is the simple example that I have created just to show you how you can create a test and how you can create assertions. But other than that, that is up to you. That is up to your requirement, that how you use the view test button for to troubleshoot it properly. If you want to see a bit different example of the view test button, then I have created a similar video for that as well. So I'll link it down below in the description, and I'll ping it here in the I button as well. So let me just show you what it does and how we can use the view test button to add test and to add assertions to our flow. We have the view test button. Let's click on the view test button. So basically in view test, what we can do is we can create test same as we create test for our epic class. Okay, here is the test button. If you already have created any test, that will show here in the list of tests. If you want to create a new test, you can click here. Here it will ask you three options. First is test details, trigger and the path. That means the label, API name, description. And after that it will ask you run the test when the record is created or updated. But if you have chosen created on the start button, then it will be disabled and the created will be chosen automatically. After that it is asking you to choose the path for the test. In this, the only option is run immediately, so you don't have to select anything here. Now the second option is important, send the initial triggering record. So uh, if you are a developer, if you know a little bit about test classes in Apex, you know that we create test data as well. This is same as that. We need some test data. We need a single account that will trigger the flow. Okay, so here when you will click, you will get the lookup for the accounts. From here you can select any account that you want to trigger this flow. That is just for the test class, that will not trigger the actual flow. That is just for the test class to appear and to check all the assertions. And when you will click the account, the details that are there in the account information, that will be filled automatically, like billing countries filled here, and if anything else I have filled, that will be there as well. But the account is blank, I have not added anything here. Now the third option is set assertions. So let's read it. To test a flow, set conditions and custom failure messages for each assertion. At runtime, the test check all of its assertions. If all conditions for each assertion evaluates to true, the assertion passes. If one condition for an assertion evaluates to false, the assertion and the test run fail. If failure occurs for an assertion during the test run, the custom failure message appears in the test run detail. So basically, when we create test, we add conditions, right? Like if conditions, else if conditions. Assertions are just that. In assertions, you will just add values to your resources by yourself, and according to those values you will check if the assertion is working fine or not. Okay, now I will just go back to the test that I have created already, and I'll show you. Edit it. So here I have just for an example added two assertions. In assertion resource, I have added billing country and I have hard codedly added the billing country India. Okay. And in the custom failure message, I have added billing country is not India. That means when the custom failure message occurs, if this is not equals to India, so I have added just that. After that, I have added assertion 2, billing country equals to US, and the messages billing country is not US. So let's run it and check if the test is running or not. I mean, if the test is passes or not. Uh, let's go to view test again and click on run test and view details. Okay, now here's the screen that will come after the test runs. Okay, on the right hand side you can see the test run details. Now here you see two assertions because we have created two assertions. In first assertion it says passed because the record billing country equals to India, condition evaluation country was India, because the account that we have chosen in the test to trigger this flow, in that account the billing country is India. That means the first assertion is true, and of course if the first assertion says the country is India, that means of course the country is not US, so the second assertions fail. Okay, And if this assertion fails, you can see the custom failure message as well, which says billing country is not US. That is how you can just find out which condition passes, which conditions fails. If the condition is failing, that you can add a meaningful message to it, so you can find out why this condition is failing. Okay, and then you can resolve the condition by editing the flow and adding the logic that is required for the condition to pass. That is how you can use view test button in the record triggered flow, and you can troubleshoot your flow as well. Now, the last point was that check every condition. If your flow has any decision element which has more than one outcomes, okay? If your decision element has more than one outcomes, that means you have to check every outcome. In this scenario, I have two outcomes, which is revenue is more than 20 lakhs and revenue is more than 1 lakh and less than 5 lakh. Okay, that means I have two conditions, so I will check two conditions. What happens is many of us just check one of these conditions, and we feel like if one is working fine, then of course the other will also work fine. That is not true. So the best way to troubleshoot your flow is to test every condition, test every outcome, and to make sure that your flow is bug free before deploying it and before activating it in your Salesforce org. So that is it, Trailblazers. That was today's example, and I'm very happy and fulfilled to say that that was the last episode of the series Go with the Flow as well. I hope you found this useful. I hope you found this whole series useful. If you found this, if you like this useful, then share it with your community, share it with your colleagues and your friends who wants to learn and who needs to learn flows from the basics. I'm Monica Ramchandani, finally signing off from the series Go with the Flow. I hope and wish you all the best for your journey. See you on the other side. Bye bye, take care, and remember, keep learning.